Hello there, this is Jennifer McGuire. Yes, it has been a while since I've done a video. I apologize for that. I have had a busy summer and our second oldest got married a couple weeks ago, but I will be back in mid-August back to doing lots of lives and videos. But before I jump into this video, I wanted to let you know that Altenew has an exclusive offer for my friends, and this is 15% all of their tools and adhesives. This includes the stamp wheel, all of their blending brushes, which you know are favorites of mine, their sticky mat, this includes their tape runners and their foam tape, which I love so much. And the information on this is in my YouTube description below, and you can see the dates there on the screen. To make things easier, I did put a category at the top of my YouTube description of my favorite of the products that are included in this 15% off. I'm hoping that helps you to find ways to save. And I just noticed that the Better Press system that I'll be using today is included in this sale. Also, just for a short while longer, you can get a free 3D embossing folder, and I will put the instructions on how to get that for free in the description also. I know everyone's always looking to save a little money when buying craft supplies, so I wanted to share this. Now, the video I'm sharing today I actually filmed a few weeks ago, but I'm just now getting around to doing the voiceover, and I will be sharing more about the Better Press system. I get a lot of questions about the system and how to use registration guides, so I'll talk about that today. But if you don't have the Better Press system, there'll definitely be other things you can learn along this video. Now, if you are new to press plates or want to learn more, I have a playlist linked here at the top right and in my description below of all my press plate videos, and there are many ways to use press plates. Now, if you aren't into press plates, no worries, just wait. I have some stamping and die cutting coming soon. But this is really cool and gives you an idea how amazing press plates are. I'll be using the Altenew Chickadee Chirps press plates and coordinating dies. I chose these for two reasons. One, I really like how unique it is. The style is great, but also this comes with a registration guide, and I wanted to show you how that worked and how it is really beneficial if you are into press plates. For cardstock, I'm using the Spellbinders Better Press Cotton Cardstock. You don't have to use this. I'll talk more about other papers you can use a little bit later. But for now, I'm using this, and I've cut the pieces to be 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. Now, for using the press plates, I will be using the Better Press system from Spellbinders, which is a great system. I highly recommend. It's a wonderful tool for your craft room. I find it to be very foolproof, and again, I have that playlist where you can see lots of ways to use the Better Press system, but also ways to use press plates without the Better Press system. Now, there is this registration guide that comes with this Chickadee Chirps product. And here I wanted to give you a closer look at it. You can see there is a green line on the outside that's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And you want to line that up with the black line of the same size on your Better Press. Now, normally I would just lay it down here and just tape it there and use that as a guide, but it's hard to see it in the video. So I have this piece of thin printer paper that I've cut to put underneath it just for the video so you can see those outlines better. You do not need to put that white paper there. If I were you, I would just tape the clear guide directly onto the gray surface. But again, I put that thin white paper under there just so you could see it better in the video. So that's the platform of the Better Press, and there's also the clear plate that goes on top. Now onto that clear plate, I am taping my cotton paper, and that's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, inside those little tick marks at the center of the plate. And I'm just using a little bit of temporary tape that works great for this. Now I know that when I put this clear plate on top of the platform, everything will line up there at the center. I also have my die cut machine ready. This is the Spellbinders Platinum 6. However, there are a variety of machines that work with the Better Press, including the Gina K Intracut and a few others. You can check the manufacturer to see what is compatible. So I've got the machine ready to go. It's time to start inking. I'm starting with the little bird himself, and I'm putting him into that outline that is on the registration guide, and it just fits right in there. So I use the little black outline, lined up the bird there. The gray surface is magnetic, so it'll hold that bird there. Now notice my bird move. That's because I have that little bit of paper underneath there so you can see. Yours would not move with just the registration guide there. But if it does move, you can just use like a piercing tool to just push it over and it's no problem. So now I am putting the top plate on and running it through my die cut machine, which will press that image into my paper. I used Altenew Obsidian Black Pigment ink, but you can use absolutely any inks you want for the better press process. I really like this black ink with it though. And look how crisp and deep that image is. It's kind of hard to tell, but it looks like letterpress because it's pressed into the paper and you get really crisp results, better than you would get with stamping. Now I want to make multiple cards. So I took that piece of cotton paper out that has the bird on it, and I'm putting a new piece of cotton paper in and repeating the process. So I ink up my bird, and then I will go ahead and put the top plate on and run it through. Again, the movement that I'm getting with that press plate is because I have that extra piece of paper in there so you can see in the video. Normally, the magnet, that is that gray surface in the press plate system, or the Better Press system, holds that press plate so you don't have to worry about it moving. By the way, you see me doing this multiple times, but each time I'm changing out my cotton paper that's on the clear plate. You only need to run through once and you'll get that crisp, solid image, unlike stamping, which sometimes you need to stamp a couple times to get crisp results. So there you can see another closer look at how beautiful that image is. I'm blown away how gorgeous press plate results are. So I've now done the bird on multiple panels, and it's time to move to the next part of this image. I use a magnet to just pick up that press plate, but you can also just use your fingers. Let's do the branch next. I'll line that up inside of the outline on that clear registration guide. Now I could ink this up here and do the same process, but I wanted to show you another way you can ink up your press plates. I'm using Altenew Fresh Dye ink this time. This is Rocky Shore. I really like the Fresh Dye inks with the press plates. I think it works really well. Now this time I'm kind of holding the press plate because in the middle there's not an area to ink. So I'm just inking the two halves with the Rocky Shore. Now I'm coming in with a darker brown and a blending brush and putting that darker ink towards the center of the branch. I will then lay it down and move it around with my tweezers to get it right inside of that outline. Put the clear plate on top and run it through. So last time I left the plate laying on the gray portion of the Better Press while I inked it up. This time I picked it up and inked it up and then laid it down. Just showing you that you can do this in many different ways. And this time I also used a blending brush with darker ink to get a blended look. So it doesn't have to be just one solid color on a press plate. So this time let's change things up again. I will just leave the press plate laying down. This is how I did the bird. And ink that up with the Rocky Shore. Then I will come in with my blending brush and a darker brown, and put that towards the middle. Now if you get some ink on that registration guide there, you can just wipe it away. I don't want that to transfer to my cardstock. Then I will move that back into the outline and then put the plate on top and run it through. So this kind of works somewhat like layering stamps, right? Where you're kind of building a scene. The difference here is you get an impression and you only need one pass through because you get crisp results every time. So if you prefer stamping, by all means, you could find a similar product and get similar results with stamping. But in this case, you're going to get crisper results with that bit of an impression left on the cardstock. And I just think it gives a classy look. I also think this particular product set, this Altenew Chickadee Chirps, would be great for one layer cards. So if you're big on one layer cards, the Better Press plates are the way to go. Another thing to keep in mind is that with press plates, you can also foil using the glimmer machine. So you could also foil these images. All right, now it's time for these, I guess, pine needles. I've lined it up into the outline on the clear registration guide, and I'm inking this up with 2 shades of green. So this time I did a bad job inking it up. I want to show you that if you don't ink it up well, you can still get good results. So I intentionally didn't ink that well, okay? And I am going to put some of the darker hunter green towards the center. So we're doing the multicolor like we did last time. Now, when I run this through, you'll see that I don't get a great inked impression on the tips of those pine needles. That's because I intentionally left those poorly inked to show you that if you mess up inking them, you still can get great results. All you need to do is ink up the same image, being careful not to move where the press plate is. Thankfully, the magnet holds it there. Then put that clear plate back on top and run it through again. You just want to make sure your press plate doesn't move. And this will go ahead and kind of like when you double stamp, we're double press plating. But I find I rarely need to do this, only if I am not careful with my inking. That's one of the things I really like about the Better Press system is it is foolproof right out of the gate. All right, so there you can see I was able to fix my mistake. I just wanted to show that intentionally so that you know that is possible. So now I'm just moving on to the other panels, doing the same process. And you'll see me do different methods for inking up the press plate just so I can demonstrate different ways for you as you watch. Now, while I do this, I did want to talk about different cardstocks that you can use. I chose to use the Spellbinders cotton paper because that is what they found is ideal for the Better Press system and getting like an impression that is noticeable. If you don't have their cotton paper, you can also use a lot of different watercolor papers because those are also soft and you're able to get an impression with those. So you can always try watercolor paper. The other option is to use regular cardstock. You will get great results in that the image will be very crisp, but you won't get as deep of an impression, which is totally fine. In fact, I almost always use regular cardstock because I care more about the crisp results than I do the impression. However, with these cards, I knew I was going to keep them simple, and I have a lot of this Better Press going on that I wanted that impression to show more. Now at this point, I'm going to remove that white paper because I feel like you can see enough and just to show you how I normally would do this. So I took that white paper out. By the way, that was very thin white paper because I didn't want to add pressure in here. This time I have the pine cones, which I did with brown, and then I came in with a lava rock towards the center with my blending brush, and I'll run that through. By the way, I did want to mention that I'm using the new handle on the Spellbinders Platinum 6. It's called the My Turn handles. These make it easier to crank through the Spellbinders Platinums machines. It's like a longer handle, so it's just so much easier to crank, and you can also see it has a soft handle on it. Now, I used this in a live a few weeks ago, and I was really excited about it, but it wasn't available yet, so I did want to just mention to you that it is available now. So if you have a Platinum machine, I recommend checking it out. I have it linked below, and you can find out more information about it. Okay, so I did the pine cones on all of my panels, and now I have this cute little scene, and there are different things that I can do with these. I definitely could leave it one layer and also do a Better Press sentiment because you can see there are many sentiments included in this particular press plate set. So you could easily position them wherever you want. You could put it down towards the bottom underneath the Chickadee. I decided to switch to stamping so that I could have some bigger, more bold sentiments, but do know that there are press plate sentiment options in that particular set, or you could use other press plate sentiments. Now there's also the coordinating die that will cut this all out. So on some of my cards, I did use the coordinating die to cut it out, and on others, I left it as one panel. I like having the options, and I made each of my cards a little different. By the way, on one of my panels, I got some ink where I didn't want it. Let me just show it to you there. You can see there's like a little bit of ink there. That I did when I wasn't being careful with the press plate. I just use a paper sander or sanding block to just sand off that little bit of ink that's on the surface of the cardstock and no one will ever see. I'll show you here. It's like it disappeared. I recommend getting these paper sanders for this kind of thing, and I can do that wherever I get a little bit of ink. I do this also for fingerprints. When I'm stamping, I get like an ink fingerprint. It won't take off like a stamped image, but it will take off any of those little bits of ink that are on the surface of your cardstock. No one would ever know, and those paper sanders are very affordable. So now it's time to look at different sentiment options. At this point, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I did want a different sentiment for each of my cards. So let's look at the Altenew Berry Whisper press plates. I really like these little stems and berries. Be fun to do green for those stems and then do red gem berries. But right now I'm looking at the sentiments as options to use on my card. So I took some sentiments from that and some sentiments from the Chickadee Chirps Better Press set, and I've put them all onto my Better Press, and I'm making them all at the same time with Heartbeat Red from Altenew, and I'm running that through my Better Press system. So basically I'm doing a bunch of sentiments at once, which is easy to do with the Better Press system, and look at how fine detailed that is. Look at that Peace Be With You at the top. fine detail crisp that you could never get from stamps. And you also get that impression because I used the cotton paper. Now there are coordinating dies to cut these out, and I could use these on my cards, and I will use a couple of them. I still wanted to consider some other options, so I grabbed the Altenew One Go press plate. Now this is really cool because it's a bunch of sentiments strips that will be in reverse, and you do them all at once. And there are a few different sentiment options, and I highly recommend these. In fact, I have a video all about these that I'll link to in the top right and in my description below. So I inked that up with that heartbeat red, putting my plate on top and running that through, and look how crisp that is. I mean, that is just amazing. Can't get that with stamps, only with the press plate. And then I will take the die that coordinates with it and run it through, and look at all these sentiment strips I have. And that die does coordinate with all of the different One Go sentiment press plate options there are. I really like that they're kind of stretching that line. Also, the coordinating die for all of these sentiments lines up much better with press plates than large coordinating dies like that would line up with the clear stamp. It's just in how stamps are made and the material they're made. Sometimes it doesn't line up just right, but with the press plate and the die, it lines up great every time. Okay, so now I have some sentiment options, and I'll show you what I end up using a little bit later, but let's start making some cards. For this one, I wanted to keep that panel whole. I didn't do any die cutting on it, but I wanted to make it a little extra special by doing a little glitter mat around it. And I am thrilled to say that Altenew now has their Moonstone glitter paper available in big sheets. That's the one on the right there. It's a true white glitter paper. Most white glitter papers out there have iridescent glitter, so it has a little color when you tilt it. This doesn't have the color, and the glitter doesn't rub off, and you can die cut it beautifully. There it is against a sheet of white cardstock, so you can see how it is truly white, and I love it. Used to only be available in small pieces in a variety pack. Now they have the full sheets, and I am thrilled. You will see me use that often. I also really like the new smoky quartz. This is neat because it isn't like a yellow gold, and it's not silver. It's kind of in between. There it is compared to gold metallic cardstock. It's lovely if you want something with shine but isn't too ostentatious, I guess you say. And then there is the beautiful sapphire color, which is the navy that I just think is unique. Now they have other glitter cardstock packs, but those are the three that really caught my eye and I think I would use the most, but definitely that Moonstone. So I trimmed my bird panel to be about 4 by 5¼ inches, and I'm cutting a piece of the Moonstone glitter cardstock to be 4¼ by 5½, and it'll cover the front of my note card. However, most of this glitter cardstock is going to be hidden right underneath the bird panel that I'll glue on top. So what I'm doing is taking a rectangle die, you could use whatever shape, and cutting it randomly from the center. That way, the rectangle I die cut out, I can save for another project, and no one will ever know I removed that cardstock from the middle. So now I can glue my panel on there. I'll have the glitter cardstock showing around the edge, but I didn't waste that space in the middle that's covered. I had that right here, that rectangle that I can save for something else. So anytime you have specialty cardstock that you want to use as a mat, but you don't want to waste the center space that gets covered, that's a trick for you. So now I'll glue that glitter piece onto a 4¼ by 5½ inch white note card, and I want to pop up my bird panel on it. Now you don't have to, you could glue it directly down, but I wanted to pop it up, and just to save time, I'm using Spellbinders foam sheets. This is a great product for adding dimension that'll hold up nicely in the mail, and I'll glue that between my note card and the bird panel. Now you could do scraps of cardstock here, layered cardstock. You could do foam tape, but that doesn't hold up great in the mail. But this is a really quick option. So I like having some of those Spellbinders foam sheets on hand. You could also use inexpensive craft sheets like we used when we were a kid, but the Spellbinders ones are really nice and also come in other colors. So here is the completed card. I'll show you where the sentiment is from in a moment. But this one was pretty easy to do after we did all of our bird scene. You can see that faux letterpress impression and how crisp the results are. And then we have that little glitter that peeks around the edge. I wish you could see how beautiful that glitter is in real life. It really just makes that card extra special. The sentiment on that card, Wishing You Peace, was stamped with the Heartbeat ink using the Altenew Treasured Memories set. This is an older one, but I like a lot of the sentiments in here. There's a lot of great unique ones, good ones for sympathy also, and I like the unique style of them. So I reach for this one quite often. But again, this time I opted to stamp with the red ink directly on the card. Let's move on to my next example. For this one, I trimmed down the bird panel a little bit more, and I have an embossing folder background around it. This is an older embossing folder from Altenew called the Curving Leaves 3D embossing folder. It's just one that I find works with a variety of cards, and it worked great with this holiday card. And the sentiment I used on this particular card is from another older Altenew set called Splendid Bouquet. I again like the style of the sentiments on here and that there are coordinating dies. That sending hugs I've used many times in videos, but this time I stamped with the hello with that heartbeat red ink. And here is the final card. It was easy to do. For the background of the note card, I used that 3D embossing folder. It's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches and made of white cardstock. Then I trimmed down my bird panel, matted it with a little bit of red cardstock, stamped that hello sentiment with red ink, and added some red glitter gemstones. So you can see just a little bit of that embossing folder peeking around the edge on the back of the note card, but it really does add for fun texture in real life. All right, the next card I wanted to make a little different, where we have the die cut bird on there and part of that image hangs off the card. So I am creating a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch white note card. This will give me room to allow some of the image to hang off but still fit into an envelope. For a sentiment on this one, I'm using one of my most used sentiments. The little hello there in this Altenew Primrose stamp set is one of my most used because it's something that you can tuck into tiny spaces or do like on a circle die cut or directly on a card. I just seem to use it a lot. So I stamped that with red and used the coordinating die to cut it out, and I added it below the bird. Now that bird die cut there, I did cut 2 additional die cuts to glue behind it so it's stronger, it has some dimension, and I glued it across my 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch white note card. Now if you look closely, you'll see gold glitter dust over the entire card. I sprayed the whole card with Thermoweb glitter dust in gold. I just take my cards outside, spray them all at once very quickly, and then it gives this beautiful shine that is even better in real life. Now this isn't chunks of glitter, it's very fine and it really doesn't rub off, and it's a great finishing touch for a card. There's gold, silver, and iridescent, and I've been using the same bottles of each for so many years. It little goes a long way and a great way to make a card extra special. Okay, let's do our last card. Now this one has an embossing folder background, but also a fun little detail on the edge. So I'm using the Altenew Lush Berry Branch embossing folder. This also has coordinating stencils that allow you to color these beautiful branches. However, I am just using the embossing folder alone. You really could use any embossing folder here. So I did that on white cardstock, and look at that beautiful texture. It's kind of hard to see in the final card photo, but in real life it's gorgeous. So I did die cut the bird, and it'll go on top of that embossing folder background. Now I finished the rest of this off screen. It was pretty easy to do. I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card, and I cut about an inch off the front of that note card right along the edge. And then I glued a glitter strip behind that on the inside of the card. It's just a fun way to give a different fold to your card, or just a little bit of a different look. I added a sentiment that says sending you warm hugs, and all of that is on top of that embossing folder background. So there is yet another design using these birds. So many ways you can do this. And if you're somebody who likes to make a bunch of cards at once, but don't want to have every card you send out for the holidays the exact same, you can do what I did here in this video. I made a lot of bird elements, and then I changed up how I put them on a card so each one looks a little bit different. Now, I will say I was planning to show more cards in this video, but all the cards that I came up with, unfortunately, the products sold out. So I'm going to save those other cards for a video that'll come out in a few weeks when those products are back in stock. But I thought I'd give you a little sneak peek now so you know to come back. On this particular card, I show tips for stamping multiple images quickly and for combining a press plate and using the press plate without a special system. You can just use your die cut machine. And then I'll also show how to use shape dies to create a fun shape card. and ways to save on your cardstock as you do so. So stay tuned for that video. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed watching this one and that it gave you a better idea on how the Better Press system is a great one to add to your stash. I just really, really like it. If you're interested in the products that I use, they're always linked in my YouTube description below. You can also find everything over on my blog if you want to see card photos and more. I thank you for watching this today, and I promise I'll be back with more videos soon. And until then, have a good one.